body, I can't move my legs or anything, because the pain is just incredible. You know, there's no cure.
That was Prodigy keeping it real about his battle with sickle cell. Eazy got taken out by complications from HIV and AIDS. And Bushwick Bill fought pancreatic cancer till his last breath. These are rap legends who had incurable diseases they couldn't beat. Starting with Eazy-E. What started as a simple cough in early '95 would lead to one of hip-hop's most devastating losses. Eric Linwright, known as Eazy-E, had built NWA and Ruthless Records into a West Coast empire, but his wild lifestyle was about to catch up with him in the realest way. That persistent cough he kept brushing off as bronchitis or just the effects of too many late nights in the studio quickly turned into serious breathing problems that had him rush to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in L.A. On February 24, 1995, docs delivered news that shook the whole hip-hop world. Eazy had full-blown AIDS. This wasn't no early HIV diagnosis that could be managed. The virus had been wrecking his immune system for years on the low, likely caught through unprotected sex. At just 30 years old, his body was already giving out with pneumonia cystis pneumonia filling his lungs and his immune system completely shut. His wife, Tamika Woods, Wright, whom he wiped up.
We got the test results back, and the test results came back positive. He is HIV positive. I said, okay, and it took me a minute. He asked, are you okay? And I just remembered, just sitting.
Treatment back in '95 was straight brutal and barely did nothing. Docs put him on ACT, the first approved HIV drug, but it only gave slight relief while causing terrible side effects like nausea and anemia. His condition swung wildly between brief clear moments where he'd crack jokes with fam and complete delirium from fevers hitting 105. Kidney failure had him on dialysis, and his weight dropped from 160 to under 100 in just weeks. From his hospital bed, Eazy did something real powerful. He reached out to former NWA cats like Ice Cube and Dre, squashing old beef and making peace. On March 16, 1995, he dropped a public statement urging folks to take AIDS seriously and get tested. 10 days later, on March 26, surrounded by fam, Eazy died from AIDS complications. He was only 30. His death forced hip-hop to finally face HIV and AIDS head-on, breaking down stigma and pushing for more testing in black communities nationwide. Eazy's AIDS diagnosis came sudden and late, giving him only weeks to fight back. But this next legend battled his incurable disease from the day he was born, living with constant pain for over 4 decades. Prodigy. Pain was Prodigy's constant enemy from day one. Albert Johnson, one half of the legendary Queensbridge duo Mobb Deep, lived with sickle cell anemia from birth, a disease that would shape everything about his life in bars. Diagnosed at just 6 months old in '74, he didn't have no mild version some folks carry without symptoms. P had the full homozygous SS form where red blood cells twist into rigid crescent shapes under any kind of stress. Those sickled cells would clog his blood vessels, starving his organs of oxygen and triggering crises of unbearable pain. His first crisis hit when he was only 2, and from there childhood became an endless cycle of hospital stays, missed school days, and blood tests that left his fingertips covered in calluses. Growing up in the QB projects made everything harder. Cold winds triggered leg ulcers that wouldn't heal. Tour buses with stale air sparked breathing problems that left him gasping after shows. The disease stunted his growth to 56.
Excruciating pain. Like, it's to the point where I can't even move. They have to pick me up or put me in a wheelchair and carry me to the hospital. Like, I can't move my body, I can't move my legs or anything, because the pain is just incredible. You know, there's no cure for sickle cell.
Treatment evolved over the years, but never got easy. As a shorty, he relied on powerful painkillers like tomorrow when crisis hit. As an adult in the 90s, he started taking hydroxyurea daily, which helped cut crisis frequency by about 50% but required constant monitoring. He also took penicillin to prevent infections, which take out more sickle cell patients than anything else. In year, his wife Alana donated one of her kidneys after years of damage. The transplant gave him extra years, but meant taking drugs that weakened his immune system. After a show in Vegas on June 18, 2017, P.E. checked into a hospital for routine anemia treatment, but a sickle-triggered infection turned into sepsis. His compromised immune system couldn't fight off the pneumonia. 3 days later, on June 20, 2017, at just 42 years old, Prodigy passed away, finally free from the pain that haunted him his whole life. Prodigy's sickle cell anemia was a single genetic disease that tortured him physically. But this next legend faced a double assault of two autoimmune conditions attacking his body at once. J. Dilla. Hospital beds ain't supposed to be recording studios, but for J. Dilla, they became exactly that. James Dick Yangtze was a Detroit production legend whose soul-drenched beats revolutionized hip-hop in the 90s and 2000s. His work made drums feel loose and human while chopping samples into pure emotion. But in early 2002, after a grueling European tour, exhaustion and joint pain led to a diagnosis that would change everything. At 28 years old, Dilla learned he had two life-threatening conditions, thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura called TTP and lupus. TTP is a rare disorder where the body destroys its own platelets forming deadly clots. Lupus attacks healthy tissues throughout the body, causing inflammation and organ damage. Together, they were destroying him from the inside. He went from chaining 18-hour studio sessions to needing dialysis 3 times a week just to stay alive. His hands swelled up so bad he couldn't work the pads. His weight dropped from 160 to 120. Treatment became a grinding routine. Plasma exchanges swapped out his blood regularly.
You could definitely, but like he was like dying and shit, and then his mom was like obviously crying. He was in the hospital. He was making this whole album in the hospital, and he made that song to tell her, "Don't cry when I pass away." You know what I mean? Like that shit just fucked me up, bro. Like
wow,
yeah, crazy.
Despite everything, Dilla refused to stop creating. From his hospital bed at Cedars-Sinai in late 2005, hooked up to fours and barely able to move, he recorded his masterpiece, Donouts. His moms wheeled in a portable sampler, and he programmed 31 short tracks. Too weak to stand, but determined to leave his mark. The album dropped February 7, 2006 as his final statement. 3 days later, on February 10th, complications from TTP and lupus caused circulatory failure. Dilla died at just 32, but his legacy lives on through Donouts and annual Dill Day celebrations. Dilla's TTP and lupus destroyed his organs and forced him onto dialysis. But this next legend's incurable disease required him to become his own doctor, managing insulin and blood sugar every single day just to stay alive. F-Dog being nicknamed the 5-foot assassin came from F-Dog's height and his massive presence on the MIC. But another nickname would define his health struggles. Malik Isaac Taylor, one half of A Tribe Called Quest, earned the moniker Funky Diabetic after living with type 1 diabetes from age 19. That diagnosis in 1990 came right as Tribe was blowing up, turning what should have been celebration into a daily battle with blood sugar and insulin. Type 1 diabetes meant his pancreas stopped producing insulin due to autoimmune destruction. Without insulin, blood sugar spikes dangerously high, and without constant treatment, it can be fatal. For Effie, early symptoms were scary. A 20-pound weight loss he thought was tour exhaustion turned out to be his body wasting away. Hypoglycemic blackouts would hit mid-verse, causing shakes and confusion. His vision would blur. Constant thirst left him guzzling water. Neuropathy made his toes tingle. Warning of foot ulcers that threatened diabetics with amputation. Managing it became a full-time job on top of being an MC. Early on, that meant 4 insulin shots daily, constant finger pricks to check blood sugar, and turning every meal into math as he counted carbs. By the 2000s, technology helped with continuous glucose monitors that beeped warning.
and they creep up on you. Like diabetes is one of those illnesses, and it finally came and kicked my butt. It affected my kidneys, so I had to go through hell and back because of diabetes, and I'm gonna be a diabetic for the rest of my.
The disease derailed tours constantly. He had to step back from some tribe activities to focus on staying alive, but Effie refused to hide his condition. He openly spit bars about being diabetic and worked with diabetes foundations to help others. In March 2016, after a European tour with blood sugar all over the place, F collapsed in Cali. Renal failure and a perforated intestine, both from years of diabetes and immunosuppression, overwhelmed him on March 22, 2016. Surrounded by his tribe fam, F-Dog passed away at 45. Effie's type 1 diabetes was manageable with discipline and technology. But this next legend faced a silent killer that showed no symptoms until it was already stage 4 and too late to stop. Bushwick Bill. At 3T tall due to dwarfism, Bushwick Bill was physically small, but his impact on hip-hop was massive. Richard William Stevens Jr. helped pioneer horrorcore rap with Houston's Ghetto Boys, spitting disturbing verses with his high-pitched voice. But in late 2018, stomach problems he kept blaming on too much barbecue, and brew turned into something way worse. Bloating escalated to yellow-tinged skin and terrifying weight loss. In February 2019, docs at MD Anderson Cancer Center delivered devastating news. Bushwick Bill had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The adenocarcinoma had already spread from his pancreas to his liver and lungs, making it essentially untreatable. Pancreatic cancer is called a silent killer because symptoms don't show till it's too late. Stage 4 has only a 3% 5-year survival rate. His dwarfism made everything worse. Spinal stenosis from achondroplasia pinched his nerves, so when tumors pressed on his spine, the pain was unbearable. His short...
How are you feeling?
Well, I mean, it's hard to explain how cancer feels, but every day above ground's a good day, and I'm just fighting the frame of cancer against its rumors, lies, and allegations that it's going to kill me, because I'm just going to fight.
Treatment at MD Anderson was aggressive, but ultimately futile. He underwent brutal FOLFOX chemo that blistered his veins and dropped his white blood cell count dangerously low. Fever spiked to 103, forcing isolation. Radiation targeted liver meds but caused nerve damage. His dwarfism created logistical nightmares with hospital equipment. He tried everything from cannabis oil to prayer circles with Scarface. A GoFundMe raised over $100,000 for experimental treatments. But pancreatic cancer don't care about fight or faith. Enzymes leak from the dying pancreas, literally digesting it from inside. Diabetes developed, requiring insulin shots with shaking hands. On June 9, 2019, after weeks bedridden in a Houston Methodist hospital, toxins built up in his blood, causing hallucinations. Multi-organ failure followed. Scarface held his hand as Bushwick Bill mumbled about the Ghetto Boys, then slipped away at 52. Bushwick Bill's pancreatic cancer spread fast and furious through his small frame. But this next legend, blood cancer, ate through his bones slowly while plasma cells turned rogue and multiplied out of control. Guru. Sometimes the battles artists face offstage are more intense than anything on wax. Keith Edward, a limb known as Guru, was a philosophical voice of Gang Starr, dropping baritone wisdom over jazz-infused beats. But in 2009, chronic fatigue and bone pain led to a diagnosis at 48 multiple myeloma. This vicious blood cancer hijacks plasma cells and releases proteins that eat through bones like acid. Black folks get hit by myoma at twice the rate of white folks, likely due to vitamin D deficiencies and healthcare disparities. The disease wrecked Guru's body systematically. His kidneys started failing from excess proteins, causing his legs and arms to swell. Spinal lesions sparked excruciating back pain. His brother described how Guru pushed through a European tour in late 2009, hiding fevers and night sweats until he collapsed backstage in Paris. His hemoglobin crashed dangerously low. By January 2010, the cancer had taken over his bone marrow completely. Treatment was brutal and ultimately hopeless. High-dose chemo with drugs like Vincine and Doc Rubicon scorched his veins and caused nausea so severe he could barely sip water. Docs considered stem cell transplants but decided he was too weak. Radiation targeted spinal tumors but caused hair loss, mouth sores that made talking impossible, and nerve damage that numbed his fingers. From his hospital bed, he dictated verses for what would become his final album, Guru 8. 0, Lost and Found, featuring Common and Mos Def. His manager, Sola, enforced strict control over who could visit, issuing vague updates. Fam, including his son, Justice, were blocked from the bedside, learning about his condition through media leaks. Allegations later surfaced about isolation and potential abuse. On March 30, 2010, a sudden heart attack triggered by the cancer's toxic proteins plunged Guru into a coma at Good Samaritan Hospital. He lingered for weeks on life support. On April 19, 2010, multi-organ failure finally claimed him at 48. His passing spotlighted multiple myoma's devastating impact on black communities. Guru's multiple myoma hijacked his plasma cells and attacked from inside his bone marrow. But this next legend, rare cancer, chose a different battlefield, growing silently in his salivary glands and spreading along his nose.